Up next, find out how a telepathic gorilla is sharing his views with the world. UCM was visited by world-renowned author Daniel Quinn, whose novel Ishmael has found success in over 30 countries.
I can't tell you a little bit about the book. It's not that kind of book that I can tell you a little bit about it. I can tell you the impact that it's had on people of changing their view of the world and of man's place in the world, which is a pretty unusual thing for a novel to do. The student is or the narrator rather, is a disillusioned, youngish, not quite middle-aged man who took the children's revolution of the 60s very seriously and thought that a hard rain was going to fall and that some real change was going to take place. And when it all eventually came to naught, because the hippies found out that they couldn't live on the streets forever, and they had to ultimately go get jobs just like everybody else, and the hippie movement came to a virtual end. And he was very disappointed. And one day he saw in the newspaper an advertisement in the personal section saying, wanted a student with an earnest desire to save the world. Apply in person, and giving an address. And the young man, youngish, oldish man, goes there and finds a room at the back of a warehouse, and half of it is blocked off by a window and therefore dark to him since there were no lights behind the window. And he didn't know what it was, and he thought it was probably all just a fake and a sham. But then someone spoke to him from behind the glass wall, spoke to him in his mind telepathically, which I thought was the simplest way of doing it. And thus began his conversation with Ishmael, the lowland gorilla, who spent the next weeks meeting with him to give him insights into the world that he occupied and to change his mind about what it was we are doing here.
12 years and 8 versions later, Quinn was ready to share his views of modern society with the world.
Well, as Ishmael tells his student, this is what I want you to do. Teach 100 what you've learned here and urge them to teach 100. Because what is going to change the world is changed minds. I have no 12-step program. Recycle your trash. You know, everyone knows about those things. But in the end, if we change, it will be because people have changed in their heads. The example that I give is that of the Soviet Union, which in the late 80s, quite suddenly, the people said, let's dump this. It took everybody by surprise. It was their minds that changed. It wasn't a movement. Gorbachev didn't do it. There got to be a critical mass. And suddenly, bang, the Soviet Union was gone. And everybody was astounded that it could happen this way. And if it happens for us, it will happen that way as well.
As a textbook publisher of over 20 years, ironically, it wasn't until he wrote Ishmael that Quinn was able to influence young minds in the classroom.
Oh yeah, it's been tremendously rewarding. I had no idea, never even crossed my mind, that Ishmael or any of my other books would ever be used in the classroom. So it came as a tremendous surprise when suddenly, after the book came out in paperback, I began to be told that it was being used in classroom after classroom all over the world. And the funny thing about that is that when I was in educational publishing, I was a very subversive character and fairly highly placed, and it was my idea to bring some subversive elements into the curriculum, sneak them in by way of textbooks and other things that I created. And of course that was an impossible task, really, because the schools determine what goes in and what doesn't, nobody else. And then to have this tremendous success at getting into schools when I never expected to do it. That's been very gratifying indeed. It never occurred to me that it would ultimately be translated into something like 30 languages. Just had no idea that it would be that successful.
To find out more about works by Mr. Quinn, you can visit ishmael.com.